So now we're going to hear about another very, very exciting project that we've sort of all seen, those of you that have been here in the past, build over time. And we're going to hear it from a developer's perspective. So it's my pleasure to introduce Christophe Florence. Christophe is Vice President for Business Development Africa for EREN Renewable Energy. He has 20 years' experience in international business development for conventional and renewable solutions, and he's led business units in Africa and around the world, and he joined EREN in October 2014.
Thank you, Adrienne, and thank you, Mark, for a very inspiring presentation. And you know, we have to come back to Earth, but it was, I mean, a fantastic visionary approach to Africa and to a country that, I mean, everyone should visit. Namibia is the most amazing place in the world. I'm a true lover. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Hello, everybody. I'm Christophe. As Adrienne was explaining, I'm a repentant from the diesel and gas industry. I've been working 18 years powering industries and utilities with gas and diesel plants. But in the meantime, renewable industry has developed tremendously, and price competitiveness has really allowed today to consider that we can make energy with renewables. And that's what we set to do at EREN. As Mark puts it, we are the PPA guys. So our business is to develop, invest, build, own, operate renewable energy plants for production of energy and to sell energy through PPAs for many years to our customers. Our business is also to take the risk of IPPs, and well, we are quite professional at that. So today I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we can do for the mining industry, what's our value proposition. Then I will tell you a little bit more about the Essakane project, Essakane, for the IAMGOLD company from here, Toronto. And then I will update you on the project status.
EREN is a global independent power producer. We develop, finance, invest in, build and operate wind, solar and hybrid power plants globally. We stay owner of our power plants over the long term and sell electricity to our clients worldwide, public utilities, private industrials, and rural communities. Across continents, we develop greenfield energy solutions of different sizes and for both public and private customers. In particular, we tackle the needs of energy-intensive industrials, like mining companies. Clean power can be a sound business and sustainable decision. Benefits of renewable energy solutions are numerous. It can decrease their OPEX, hedge against fuel price volatility, improve their carbon footprint, enhance their social license to operate, and allow them to leave a sustainable legacy after business closure. In Burkina Faso, for instance, we built a 15-megawatt solar power plant at the IAMGOLD Essakane gold mine. Connected to a large HFO-fired power plant, the solar power plant will smoothly inject competitive and clean energy throughout the day, while a tailor-made hybrid energy management architecture ensures at all time the stability and reliability of the mine power supply, thanks to a dynamic calculation of spinning reserve based on the available solar energy production, the engine's parameters, and an optimized operating strategy. The solar power plant will help the mine decrease its fuel consumption by 6 million liters per year and cut emissions of CO2 by 18,500 tons per year. Here at Essakane, and everywhere in the world, we design and customize the most economical solutions for our clients and bring them to financial close and execution.
I mean, as shown in the video, we are a global IPP. We develop, build, invest in power plants around the world, solar and wind and hybrid. I'm responsible for Africa, and in Africa today we have a plant operating in Uganda, and we're building one in Burkina, and 2 plants in Egypt, starting in a couple of weeks. We are a company with our own investment capacity, so we deploy our own capital. And maybe worth mentioning, we announced recently that the French oil company Total is investing 230 million in RN for us to do more projects around the world and more projects for you, hopefully. In Africa, we are powering, and around the world, we are powering utilities. We are powering industries, mines, or energy-intensive industries. We are also powering rural communities. We are powering people beyond the grid. And I will tell you a little bit more about that. So quickly showing a few examples of the kind of technology we are owning and we have developed. So we have a plain vanilla solar and wind plants. Then we have also invested in solar and battery, and also wind and battery projects. Essakane will be our first large solar diesel plant. Actually, it will be the largest solar to diesel plant in the world when it's in operation. And finally, the mini-grid, as you can see on the right-hand side, lower. We are powering communities with a combination of solar panels and batteries and a satellite connection. So we're bringing electricity and communication to places where it's not available. So what can we do for the mining industry? We can do basically 2 things, and I will explain to you a bit more into the details. But first, I would like to mention that all our mining business in Africa is developed with our partner and joint venture, AEMP, Africa Energy Management Partners. And we are developing and building power stations in Africa with them. So the first value proposition to the mining industry is to reduce your energy cost, is to hedge against fuel price variability, and to reduce carbon footprint. The thing we can do as an IPP, as opposed to you mining companies investing into the project, is we put our capital into the projects. So we develop and we invest, and since we are a large company and we build a lot of power stations around the world every year, we also have access to good price technology. I mean, we are negotiating EPC contracts with a number of partners. We are technology independent or agnostic, but we have a purchasing power that allows us to be competitive. So, okay, very good, sorry. So why is solar power saving energy? Saving energy cost? Well, it's reducing fuel consumption, and it's reducing the operation and maintenance cost on the diesel plants. We have expertise at home in the company to design these systems, and when we design a system, we contract energy cost with a mine for a number of years based on certain load demand patterns. And that's what becomes the PPA at the end of the day. The kind of solution that we are offering is relatively quick to deploy, as opposed to waiting for the national grid to extend upon toward your mine. Especially in Africa, it can take a fair amount of time. The second thing we can do for the mining industry, and we are doing, is we help the mining industry handling the nearby communities. in Africa in particular, there's quite a number of mines where the villages around the mines don't have access to power. And when I say villages, it can be a very, low density population that is very costly and difficult to electrify from the national grid. Here we're talking about 70% of people in Africa don't have access to electricity. And if you consider this, in 10 years, there's been around 200 million Africans electrified with the grid. In the meantime, the population has grown by 250 million. So quickly you realize that powering people through big backbone transmission lines will not be enough to meet the African challenge. And that's one thing we are set to do. We have another partnership called Winch Energy. We invest and develop these projects, and we think they are particularly relevant, or they can be relevant for the mining industry. We have seen examples, recent examples in Guinea, for instance, where population around the mining pits don't have access to electricity and become angry that the industry have access to power, and they don't have access in their village. So we really think that bringing energy to the village will help acceptability of mining projects, and it also instantaneously creates wealth and jobs. The day you bring this kind of solution, and we have examples of this, the day you bring this kind of solutions to a village, the first thing that will be connected is a welding machine to weld and do a little workshop, is a compressor to repair tires, is a fridge to sell cold drinks. The day you bring power to people, they will transform it into economic activity, into jobs. And it's really helping stabilize the population around the mine. So we think it can be a great way for mines to mitigate, for their corporate social responsibility planning. We can really help with that. Now we're going to talk, to review quickly the challenges that have been addressed in the Essakane project, and it will give you the developer's perspective on this kind of activities. So the Essakane gold mine is located in Burkina Faso, 350 kilometers north of Ouagadougou. And our customer here is the IAMGOLD company from Canada, which is the largest mine Essakane is the largest mine in Burkina Faso and is also the largest employer in the country. And the mine is owned 90% by IAMGOLD and 10% by the government of Burkina Faso. So what we have set to do is the mine was operating with 11 heavy fuel engines producing electricity. So that's a 55 megawatt diesel plant. But the actual load demand from the mine is in the range of 40 megawatt in normal operation, 25 during maintenance of one SAG mill, and 5 megawatt when both SAG mills are under maintenance. So for this configuration, we have defined that the good size for a solar plant is 15 megawatt. That's the right size to allow stability of energy supply and to reduce in a sizable way the fuel consumption. The development time for this project was 16 months. So during these 16 months, we have negotiated contracts with IAMGOLD. We have obtained the license and the permits necessary to build and operate a project like that in the country. And we have contracted the EPC for the project and the O&M for the project. So 16 months of development, construction time is 12 months, and the PPA is 15 years. A solar project connected to a diesel plant like this is really consisting of solar panels. We have 22 hectares of solar panels, 160,000 panels in this installation, and inverters, and transformers and the electrical equipment. For this project, we have decided to trust Wärtsilä to build this solar plant. Keeping in mind that Wärtsilä was also the provider for the diesel plant, we saw value at hiring them to design the interface and to operate the plant and to guarantee the performance of the plant. We, as an investor, take the technology risk. The technology risk is not on the mine site. If the plant is not running, the mine is not buying energy, is not paying for energy. So we take care of these risks by employing proper EPC and O&M companies. When this plant will be operating, it will achieve 6 million liters per year of fuel saving. 6 million liters is a lot. And keep in mind, Burkina Faso is a landlocked country. It's really thousands of kilometers to the coast. Fuel is imported on a very long distance. It's a lot of trucking. So the fuel reduction is not only meaning less emissions from the generators at the mine, but also from all the trucks that have to deliver the fuel. So the direct saving on CO2 will also be 18,500, excluding the truck that are taken away from the road. And the nice thing about these projects and the current price of solar technology is that this project is allowing the mine to reduce its energy cost at the current relatively low oil price. Would the price of oil go up, then the mine will have really a hedging mechanism in place to reduce the impact of oil price variation. So in that way, the mine is less dependent on the last crisis in the Middle East and those things. And finally, the last benefit of a project like this for the mine is the enhanced social license to operate. Reducing emissions, this plant is adding activity to the site, is adding employment. We will be employing 40 people during the operation of the plant. So it's really helping give more jobs to the community and reducing emissions. Now let's talk a little bit about the technical challenge to design and build a plant like this. The first thing we want to do for a mine is to ensure continuity of energy supply. It's not an option to switch off power and cut on the gold production. So that was the primary parameter that we had in mind when designing this system. And when you talk about energy stability, you have to think a solar plant is converting the sun into energy. So the sun stops to shine, the energy goes down from the solar panels. So when clouds are coming, you lose the power from the solar plant. So you need to cater for that. There's different ways to handle it, but the best way that we have figured out for this configuration is to have spinning reserve from diesel engines. So you have to take in consideration the ramp-up time for the engines, the way they behave with load variations and things like that. So grid stability, first and foremost parameter. Then the second parameter that dictates the design of a project like this is how do you maximize the solar energy into the system? How do you reduce the maximum amount of fuel? And you have to keep in mind that adding solar energy into a hybrid system requires a bit more spinning reserve. And spinning reserve means that engines will be operating in a slightly degraded efficiency mode. So this little graph on the slide shows you in red that a little bit of fuel is consumed by the engines, a little bit more fuel because of spinning reserve requirements. But at the end, the green square represents the solar energy that is taken away from the fuel consumption, and you can really see that the system is adding a tremendous fuel reduction. Maybe I could add that in the next phase or in the next projects, what we will be doing is integrating battery systems in the project. Batteries today are still very expensive. Putting battery systems far away in the Sahel desert in Africa, has serious implications about the sustainability of technology, about availability of competence, about maintenance. So we prefer to go carefully on the first project, but I think the industry is taking us there, and the pricing for batteries is going down, and is going to make it possible to increase the amount of solar energy into diesel systems in the future. So we are already working on the next projects using this principle. So I mentioned quickly the technical challenge of designing and implementing a system like that. There's more challenge coming when you are dealing with a project that is far away in the middle of Africa. You have very harsh climatic conditions. For instance, you can see on the lower picture the Harmattan. That's the dust storm that come frequently in this region and that obliterate all visibility in a few seconds. So when you get a wall of dust like this coming over the plant, then it will stop the solar production for a while. It's also more difficult to build, and you have to operate the plant properly to design it to take this kind of environmental hardship. We are in a desertic area, but there's also a rain season. So if you look at the size of the ditches that we have to build on the project, we have also to look at flooding. I mean, the same place that gets very dry 9 months in the year is also flooded 3 months in the year. So all of this take experience from a company like ours. We are building plants in India and in many harsh and hostile environments. And it takes a very good contracting with an EPC company to design the plant properly and to operate it properly. Then there's the geopolitics between the beginning of the discussions and the contracting. There's been a change. I mean, one president got evicted in the country, then there's been a coup d'etat. You have to deal with all of that. How do you handle, how do you keep your bearings in such changing environments? And it's not unusual to see these things in Africa. But I think that project makes sense, first of all, will probably remain in the picture as long as the mine operation is not altered. And there's also a variety of instruments to protect against this kind of risk, insurance and things like that. And finally, the kind of challenge that we encounter in a project like this is also the commodity variation. Not only the gold price is moving up and down, but also the oil price. So it makes a lot of variable parameters in the equation. So a solution to handle all of these challenges and criteria is to structure a proper PPA, the famous or infamous power purchase agreement. PPAs is a contract that is established between the IPP and the energy user. You have to understand a solar plant is just pure capital expenditure. You spend everything up front, you don't have to put fuel, and the operation and maintenance cost is very low. So for an investor to put a large capex on a project, you have to ensure that if your plant performs, you will get revenues for many years. So we are structuring the PPA around these principles, and also about around the reality of the mine. What happens if? What happens if the mine lifetime stops earlier? What happens after the plant, the life of mine is over? There's all of these things that have to be taken into account. And you can see on the graph that the price of electricity is extremely sensitive for a full capex project on the duration of a PPA. So a long PPA allows you very competitive energy price, but how long can you go on a mine? So we had a number of discussions with IAMGOLD on this for a few months, sometimes difficult conversations, but at the end of the day, I think we have structured something that works for the mine, works for us, in a contract where the risk is passed on to the appropriate party. We are not responsible for production of gold, but we are responsible for production of electricity. So quickly, just a couple of slides on the status of the project. The project was developed from Q1 2016 to Q1 2017. Key role from AEMP and RN to develop this together with the teams from IAMGOLD. We have negotiated the PPA, and then we have given the EPC contract to Wärtsilä to build the plant. The plant will be ready in Q1 2018. And last week, we have also completed the limited recourse project finance. That's another advantage when working with an IPP, is that we can attract debt for this kind of projects and build financing around it to make it more competitive. So we have, in this case, very happily worked with a local bank in Burkina Faso, BCAB, to finance the debt portion of the project. So at the end of the day, it makes a very interesting combination, because when you are building an IPP in a country with local banks, it makes a stronger setup than using international lenders. I think my time is off. So thanks for the attention, and I think we will take questions during the panel. Thank you.